Hi, my name is Nick Meyer. I'm the author of the ProportionFit Diet. I'm going to go over the brief summary of what's found in the ProportionFit Diet. We're going to discuss weight loss, maintenance, and how to succeed at both. I truly believe this is a diet so simple and effective that really anyone can do it. What we're going to learn in this brief presentation is why weight control is important, why other methods tend to fall short, how to manage intake by counting cups rather than counting calories, and how to apply this knowledge to your situation. So why should we worry about our weight? We're going to review some of the common concerns about obesity or just being overweight in general. The health effects of obesity are often obvious, but we're going to review a few of them. As an orthopedic surgeon, I deal with patients that have hip and knee problems as well as other joints that have worn out prematurely, and a lot of times it's due to excess weight. For every pound that you carry extra on your frame, it puts about 5 more pounds of force across the knee, and so it leads to premature wear and tear on the knee and hip joints especially. There are cardiovascular effects as the heart has to work extra hard to pump the blood through the system, which is larger and has more resistance. There's increased risk of diabetes. There is increased risk of sleep apnea. As you put on weight, you tend to develop sleep apnea. Sleep apnea then leads to poor sleep patterns, lethargy, and then the tendency to put on more weight. And so it becomes a vicious cycle. There are the self-esteem effects of weight gain. You can have improved self-image if you lose weight and get into a normal BMI. You also will tend to have increased energy as you bring your weight down. This leads to improved self-esteem and feelings of self-worth. There are other less obvious concerns or effects that weight has on your day-to-day life, including financial savings. As you lose weight, for example, if you go from being a 400-pound individual to a 200-pound individual, you're essentially going to be eating half as much food. So you're going to cut your grocery bill in half. You're going to wear out your shoes less frequently. You're going to wear out your clothes less frequently. You're going to use less gas to get from point A to point B. So it really does save on other resources as well as just the food bill. So let's talk about BMI. BMI is not a perfect measure of appropriate weight, but it is a pretty good and a pretty simple tool that we can use. If you look on the left-hand side, it measures height. If you look at the top, it gives you the BMI. So basically, to use this chart, all you do is you look at the left-hand column for your height, and then you trace over to where your weight is, and then you go up to the top to find your BMI number. There are 5 categories. One is underweight, which is not reflected on this chart, and then normal, overweight, obese, and extreme obesity or extremely obese. So, for example, if we have a 5 foot 10 inch tall individual who is 70 inches tall that weighs 209 pounds, we'd find the 70 inch column on the left, follow that over in the row and look at the weights. We see 209, and then now we follow that at the top and we find that a person that's 70 inches tall, weighing 209 pounds, has a BMI of 30. This is certainly not an absolutely perfect measure of body mass index, but it, again, is a pretty good reflection of where your weight should be for your given height. What it doesn't measure is the fitness of that individual. For example, Adrian Peterson, who's a star running back with the Minnesota Vikings, is listed as 73 inches tall and weighing 217 pounds. Thus, his BMI would be about 28.5 to 29 in the overweight category. Certainly no one would consider him overweight or unhealthy because he is very lean and very strong, yet someone who also is 73 inches and 217 pounds, who is not a star NFL player, who is someone who tends to sit on the couch and eat too much, can then fit in that overweight category. So again, it is not a reflection of fat versus muscle, it's simply a measure of height versus weight. So, why do other diets tend to fail? There are 3 critical elements for any treatment of any condition, including obesity or being overweight. Those 3 critical elements include simplicity, effectiveness, and expense. Most diets lack one of these 3 things. They're either not simple, or they're not effective, or they are expensive. Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, personal trainers, Seattle Sutton, etc., they are all very simple and often very effective because they can control your meals for you and have you eat the appropriate amount day to day. They may be good for losing weight, but they may not be good for long-term maintenance because then they get to be expensive in the long term. Obviously, just being told to eat less can be very inexpensive, but it's not reproducible. things like supplements, HCG, diet pills can be effective again in the short term, but they're not very good in the long term, and they tend to be expensive. So what we have developed, I believe, is a very simple, very effective, and very inexpensive diet plan with the ProportionFit diet. And our diet really helps not just in the short term, but also in the long term. So why are we unique? We're unique because it is very simple and very reproducible. It is self-directed. You are not relying on anything else but yourself. It's effective. It really reflects a cut in calories, or measuring the calories by counting your cups rather than counting the calories. And so it is highly effective, and we've done some studies to show the effectiveness. And it is inexpensive. The only expense is the knowledge. While this discussion that you're going through right now is a good primer on what's involved in the ProportionFit diet, you'll get much more from the book if you read the book from cover to cover and get all the finer points of the diet plan. So one of our early trials looked at 18 individuals who wanted to eventually lose at least 20 pounds. They weren't planning on losing 20 pounds within 2 months, but they eventually wanted to lose at least 20 pounds over the course of months or even a year. So we asked them if we could collect their data for 2 months. We gave them the book and said, read the book and go ahead and follow this plan, hoping to lose approximately 2 pounds per week. We had 12 females and 6 males involved in the study, and the average weight loss was about 13.5 pounds. At the end of the 2-month trial, we asked folks to grade how well they followed the study, or how well they followed the program. For those that followed the program closely, they lost approximately 15.5 pounds over the course of 2 months. And so they had a very good result after 2 months on the diet, losing at least 15 pounds. They've continued to follow this and lose additional weight with time. We have other studies in progress, and we're working with a local university to develop a more scientific study here to evaluate this a little bit further. So what is this all about? Basically, we're counting cups versus counting calories. We know through others' research that people burn about 13 to 15 calories per pound per day if they have a moderate level of activity. Some people may burn as few as 8 to 12 if they're very sedentary. They may burn as many as 16 to 20 if they're very active. And we all know that essentially if your intake outpaces your expenditure, you're going to gain weight. If your intake, however, is less than your expenditure, you're going to lose weight. We also know that about 3,500 calories are involved for the production of a pound of fat. And so if you take in 3,500 extra calories, you're going to add a pound to your frame. If you take in 3,500 fewer calories than you expend, well, you're going to lose a pound. So, while counting calories can seem to be very exact, it is ultimately fairly inexact. And so we're going to go ahead and count cups rather than counting calories as a simple method of controlling our consumption. As a quick review, we're going to talk about the 3 primary components of food, those being fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Fruits and vegetables tend to be high in carbohydrates. Meats and nuts tend to be high in protein and fat. Seafood, fish, chicken, tofu tend to be high in protein without much carbohydrate or much fat. Pastas and grains are primarily carbohydrates, but also have a bit of protein depending on the type of pasta or grain that you're consuming. And finally, we can't forget about those calorie-laden beverages. Whether they're alcoholic or sugar-containing, we need to count those if we're taking those in, because those calories count just as much as any other calorie. So we like to encourage people to take in non-caloric beverages, whether that's water, coffee, tea, or diet beverages. There's some controversy regarding aspartame and whether or not that is safe. And for the most part, studies have shown that it seems to be a safe product if taken in moderation. And so I would encourage people to substitute a diet soda for a sugar-containing soda when possible. And if you want to avoid it altogether, stick with water. Here's an example of one of the charts found in the ProportionFit Diet period. We've taken multiple food types and figured out how many calories are found in a cup of that specific food type. Just to review, a cup is equal to 8 ounces. So if we use a standard measuring cup, that's essentially what we're talking about. So a cup of beef pot roast is going to have approximately 410 calories. Broiled cod, however, being much lighter, is only about 175 calories per cup. Crab, only 120 calories per cup. If you look at all these different meat types, meat, poultry, and seafood, and you take the average, it averages out to be about 310 calories per cup. So a little higher than our average, which is 270 calories per cup, but not exorbitant. When you look here, pepperoni is the winner at 470 calories per cup. Here are vegetables. Again, going to be much lower overall, averaging only 90 calories per cup. And so again, when we have that nice balanced diet, we're looking at fruits and vegetables as well as meat and potatoes. We're going to average out and find that that average ends up being at about 270 calories per cup. So again, those calories can be as low as 10 calories per cup for spinach and 240 calories per cup of potatoes. You throw those potatoes in a deep fryer, turn them into French fries, and they double in calorie count, up to 480 calories per cup of French fries. So again, keep in mind, it's not just the food type that matters, it's the preparation. Same can be said for salad. If you take a plain lettuce salad without dressing, only 10 calories per cup. You add a tablespoon of ranch dressing, now you've added 70 calories. Add another tablespoon, put that dressing on a little heavier, you're up to 150 calories per cup. So again, that same cup of salad is going to be quite different depending on how much dressing is put on that cup of salad. So what does this all mean? Essentially, averaging this out, we're going to find that a balanced diet with fruits, vegetables, grains, meats, dessert too, is going to give us about 270 calories per cup. So again, assuming that we have a fairly balanced diet, on average you're going to average about 270 calories per cup of food. We also know that, as we discussed before, there are about 14 calories per pound of individual that is expended per day. So if you take 20 pounds, multiply that by 14, you get 280 calories. So 280 calories for every 20 pounds, which is very similar to 270. So we know that 1 cup is going to be consumed for every 20 pounds of body weight per day. And so whether you know it or not, that's about how much you are taking in on average every day to be at the weight you're at today. So what are we going to do with that information? Well, if a simple 8-ounce cup or portion will make you 20 pounds heavier per day, that is very daunting. 2 cups will make you 40 pounds heavier. 3 cups can make you 60 pounds heavier. So again, that's a fairly small volume of food if you really look at it critically, especially if you think about spreading it out over 3 or 4 meals in a day. So your body needs and wants and thus signals your mind to take in enough calories to sustain itself. So if you weigh 200 pounds, your body's going to tell you to eat at least 10 cups of food to sustain itself, to take in enough calories to keep the engine burning. And so you are going to tend to eat that and maybe a little bit more. And then if you take in a little bit more, say 1 cup more, your weight is going to slowly creep up to 220 pounds. And then your 220 pound body is going to want enough calories to sustain that 220 pound body. And so the vicious cycle comes into play, and you keep on adding weight, unless we use this knowledge. We can use it now to shed pounds and turn this around. So here's a quick sample looking at different food items. So here's a sub sandwich in the top left laid next to a pop can, an apple sitting in a measuring cup, a cup of rice that's been flattened out to be the shape and size of a slice of pizza, and a slice of pizza. And so these are just simple renders to show you that, well, look at that. A cup is the same as an apple. So an apple is about the size of 1 cup of food. A cup of rice, fairly obvious, is a cup of rice. A cup of rice, however, smashed down to look like a piece of pizza, is also a cup. So a slice of pizza like this is equal to a cup as well. This 4.5-inch sub, which is the same size and shape and length as a 12-ounce soda can, is going to equal a cup and a half, because again, it's the same as a 12-ounce soda can. So these give you some visual reminders, some visual cues to figure out how to measure the volume of food that you're taking in. So if you were to eat all of these things, 2 slices of pizza plus a cup of rice, an apple, and a sub sandwich, that'd be a pretty big meal. In fact, this would be a total of 5.5 cups in one meal. For someone who, say, weighs 200 pounds like myself, I'm going to take in approximately 10 cups in a day, and so I don't want a meal to be more than probably 3.5 cups total. So for the most I would want to eat in a meal is probably this volume here, or it's 2 slices of pizza plus maybe a cup of rice and an apple. That would give me a total of 4 cups, so even that would be too much. But again, those give you some visual cues as to how to measure food volumes and put you more in tune to actually paying attention to the food volumes in your daily life. So how are you going to apply this knowledge? You're going to know that for every cup you take in, it's equal to about 20 pounds of body weight. And so if you take in an additional cup, you're going to add 20 pounds eventually over time. However, if we do the opposite, if we take away a cup a day, we can lose a half pound per week. So if we take our weight, divide by 20, that will define how many cups of food we can take in per day to essentially maintain our current body weight. If we want to lose weight, we take away 1 cup, we can lose 1/2 pound per week. If we take away 2 cups, we're going to lose 1 pound per week. If you take away 3 cups, 1.5 pounds per week. If you take away 4 cups per day, you're going to lose 2 pounds per week. And that, in my opinion, is the easiest number to remember. 4-cup deficit is going to lead to 2 pounds lost per week on a regular basis. In general, you never want to eat less than 4 cups per day because you want to take in at least 1,000 calories per day to maintain appropriate calorie intake and to maintain a healthy diet. So here's an example. Let's look at a theoretical person by the name of Pat Johnson. Pat weighs 300 pounds. Has a BMI that is over 54. It's just off the charts, unfortunately, because her height is only 60 inches or 5 feet. Pat wants to get down to a normal BMI. She wants to get down to a BMI of 24, which brings her weight down to 125 pounds. So she wants to lose over half of her body weight. At 300 pounds, Pat's starting food volume is approximately 15.5 cups. In the book, we use a more stringent calculation than the 20-pound rule per cup, but again, it's very, very close. So again, we're going to say 15.6 cups is her starting food volume. Her goal food volume for 125 pounds is only 6.5 cups. And so if you look on the left-hand side of the chart here, you see in the dark black line and dots, that's her weight. The open circles are the starting number of cups that she has to take in per day to maintain that weight, and the X's are the number of cups that she's actually going to consume on a day-to-day basis. So you can see on the far left-hand side, she's going to eat as if she is 125 pounds. She's going to eat only 6.5 cups per day, which leads to a 9-cup deficit initially. That 9-cup deficit is going to lead to approximately 2 pounds of weight loss per 3 days, and so she's going to have a very rapid weight loss initially. As, however, her weight comes down, the difference between her actual food consumption at 6.5 cups and the amount of food required for that weight becomes smaller. The gap becomes less as her weight comes down. So, for example, at week 20, where her weight is down to approximately 215 pounds, she only needs about 11 cups of food here. So now the deficit between 11 and 6.5 is only about 4.5 cups. And so now she's only going to be losing approximately 2 pounds per week. So eventually, when she gets down to a smaller deficit, now at about week 30, because the discrepancy between the actual food consumed, number of cups consumed, and the cups necessary to maintain the current weight is only about 4 cups, she's going to now convert to a 4-cup deficit. So as her weight continues to decline, she's going to subtract 4 cups from whatever the cup requirement is for that particular weight. So again, she keeps adjusting from week 30 down to week 60, actually about week 65. She's going to adjust her food consumption to maintain a 4-cup deficit from her cups required to maintain the current weight as her weight declines. One thing that is not reflected in this theoretical example is at about week 50, Pat dips below the 4-cup per day mark. So again, it's not advisable to dip below the 4-cup per day mark, but again, this is just a theoretical example to demonstrate some of the principles of the ProportionFit diet. Then at week 65, once Pat reaches the goal weight, then the consumption goes up to 6.5 cups per day to maintain that current weight. So from week 65 on, Pat goes to 6.5 cups per day, and that helps to maintain the current weight at 125 pounds. So you can see that in just over a year's time, Pat can lose all of that weight by following the principles of the ProportionFit diet, having a large discrepancy initially between the number of cups required to maintain the current weight versus the actual cups consumed, and then in the middle of the graph, having a regular 4-cup discrepancy between the cups consumed and the cups necessary to maintain the current weight. So you can see how can be applied to get to a healthy weight in just over a year's time, even for a very drastic example, such as Pat Johnson. So hopefully we've learned why weight control can be important for multiple medical problems, for financial reasons, and for reasons of self-esteem. We can understand why other methods tend to fall short because they lack the simplicity, effectiveness, or they're just too expensive as compared to the ProportionFit diet, which is very simple, very effective, and very inexpensive. We've also learned how to manage our intake by counting cups rather than calories. Just remember that 1 cup of food equals about 270 calories on average, and that we can apply this knowledge to our current situation by knowing that for every 20 pounds of body weight that we have, we can take in about 1 cup. And if we restrict 1 cup per day, we can lose about a half a pound per week. And so it's a very simple technique, a very simple calculation that really doesn't involve any extensive math knowledge. I hope that you found this discussion to be helpful as you try to establish a healthy weight and hopefully maintain a healthy weight over time. There's additional information available at ProportionFit.com, and I encourage you to check out the information there as I'm updating it when I can. There's also a Facebook page, Facebook.com/ProportionFit. So I'd encourage you to check out the information there as I'm continuing to update things and provide additional pointers. I'd also encourage you to consider buying the book. While I've tried to describe everything at a fairly broad level here and outline the findings in the book, I think there's a lot to be gained by actually reading the book. It's a fairly short read, only about 140 pages, and so you can read it within just an hour or two and really get all the salient points and fill in any blanks that may not be clear after going through this discussion. Please help spread the word, help others to hopefully succeed at this diet program, and I encourage you to provide any feedback to me as well through the website ProportionFit.com. You have a great day and good luck to you.